Today, we are joined by Ethan Arbuckle. He's made some significant strides in the IPDA that include back-to-back championships in the professional division in 22-23 and 23-24. He's also the professional speaking national champion season-long 2023-2024. And he led a team to victory as the assistant coach in the 23-24 Community College Championship. On top of that, he won the 22 Team IPDA Championship alongside his partner, and he's contributed as an author to the IPDA's third edition textbook. Ethan, glad to have you on.
Nice to see you. I'm happy to be here.
Ethan, why join the IPDA in the first place?
I actually have a really funny story about that. A nice guy named Trey Gibson went to talk to me while I was in high school, and he was like, "Hey, you're doing mock trial," which is what I did in high school. We were state champions before that. And he's like, "I think you'd kind of like this." And I was already decided I was going to go to LSUS. At the time, I thought I was going to do law school. And he was like, "Hey, just come to a tournament, watch around, have some fun." I ended up being too late to the tournament, but the guy seemed really interesting. And he made me sign. I got a fancy hat, and I went to my first tournament, and that was that. I mean, I was all in from there. I've been a part of the organization ever since.
Why stay specifically?
So it's the place I've found really to be home, not only in the sense of, this is where I enjoy being, this is where I am professionally, but I mean, heck, everyone from virtually all of the best men in my wedding were debaters. My wife now debates with me. My twin sister debates in the IPDA. I mean, IPDA is a family affair. My first coach, Trey Gibson, was like a father to me. I call my second coach, AJ Edwards, debate dad, because that's who he is to me, right? So I stay because I love the people. I mean, the organization is great. It's really competitive. And out of all the organizations I've seen, it's most enjoyable for me. And also, as an educator, I also think one of the most educational that people can experience. So I stay personally on a personal level because of the people, but I also stay because it's the organization I think is doing the best job. And so I'm a bit biased on that, but that's one of the reasons why I stayed.
What do you think are the biggest reasons people don't join the IPDA in the first place after they hear about it?
I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons why people might not join debate. Of course, you have the typical, for all debate types of things, the stereotypes, right? The things you see in the movies, people that might not want to join. I also know that especially in the wider academic world, the IPDA doesn't have a big name or great name. One of the things that's kept people away has been the inclusion of things like pro, where we let coaches and people with graduate degrees come in and debate. And to a lot of people, that's a very foreign concept. Now, as a person who started in IPDA, that's just to me natural. But some of my colleagues I've talked about at the National Communication Association have expressed that, hey, that's kind of weird. That's the other thing is the IPDA isn't particularly active in things like the National Communications Association. We go as individuals, but we don't necessarily have a controlling interest in a lot of the things that they do. For example, the forensics division of the NCA. So, I think in some ways, we don't really have those connections.
What's something that you did not understand about the league or a misconception about it until you joined?
Well, see, I'm not going to have too many misconceptions, but the one things I didn't understand was how the process worked. I'd always heard about, because I was in high school before I joined, heard about, the speed talking. Everybody they want the really fast flow. And that was one of the things that kept me from doing debate in high school. So I thought I was going to go into a bunch of really, really uppity people who were just there to compete. They all wanted to be like politicians or something. And that's all that they wanted to do. But what I went in and what I found is, one, we don't speed quite that much. And two, there's a lot of people here just for fun because we know people, we love people, and we're here to help you. So I came in expecting a very set mentality that was almost all competition focused. And then what I got was something else entirely. And I enjoyed that a lot more.
If you could change the IPDA, how would you change it?
If I could change it, in a way, what I almost want is to go back to a time where I never was. I always hear stories, and I'll say this is how I hear it. I always hear stories about when the IPDA started, we had less divisions, of course. We didn't have all the divisions we had today. And there was a time when the founders of the organization and all the big name coaches that were, that were and still are my mentors would just go in for a round of pro and have fun and, do completely silly things. And I feel like, I won pro 2 years in a row, but I'm not that I don't see myself as an old hand. So one of the ways that I would change the IPDA is I want some of the old hands to come back and throw their hat in the ring. Some because I would love to get a crack at them, right? Like any good competitive person, but mostly because I think it's helpful. If we're going to stay as advocates, we need to understand the competition, but two, it's helpful to let all the new people, the new faces, the novi that come in year after year, see the people that founded the organization in more than just the roles as head of the governing board or, chairs or executive committees. But I think those face-to-face in-round reactions would really help, maintain the great collegiate atmosphere that we have in the IPDA. So that's one of the changes I would love to see or return to, I guess, in this instance.
Tell me a story that defines what it means to be a professional IPDA debater.
Oh, a story. To me, it's kind of a mentality. So I competed in every division of the IPDA, novice, JV, varsity. I've been in top 10 in all of them. So I've been competitive. But one of the things I loved about pro was when you walked up to pro and you walked up to strike. When you walked up, it wasn't like enemies glaring at each other, trying to see who was going to be the one who made it out. It was, okay, we're going to have some fun. So me and my best friend Gideon's, sometimes we'd look at a strike sheet and we'd be like, there's a Star Wars quote on there. I'm not going to strike that. Are you going to strike that? He'd say, no, of course not. And we'd just go and debate something for the fun of it. And absolutely, we'd go in there, we'd try our best, but it was just really the relaxed nature, the fact that, hey, we've all been here a little while. Even if we haven't, we'd like to see you here. And we're just here to chill and have some fun. The dynamic of the pro division is completely different from any of the rest of the divisions. And to me, it was the most enjoyable. Out of all the divisions I competed in, I enjoyed my time in pro the most because the people were really inviting and we were mostly there just to have fun. So, yeah, it was fun.
What unique approach or value do you think you brought to the IPDA? In other words, why did judges tend to vote for you?
There's probably a few reasons for that. So, I think it's a combination of factors. So one of the things I did that really changed the way that I debated as an individual was I went over and I participated in debates over in Ireland and England. And in watching that style, the BP, that style, I learned a few things about the narrative types of debating. I remember I was in Wales and we tried to bring up some statistics and the guy literally went something along the lines of, we don't care about those here. That was the entirety of his response. They just wanted the great rhetorical style of debating, especially that last wit speech. These are the main ideas. Here are the 3 questions we need to answer in this round. So what I took from that after doing JV and after experiencing that was, okay, I love the technical. I definitely know all my debatees. I know the stock issues. I've read the textbooks, help contribute in some ways. But what I took back was, okay, don't forget the story, right? And then after I became an instructor, that person actually teaching even just the basic speech course, I also learned kind of the same lesson over again. I was like, okay, hey, let's not put this debate first. Let's put this speech first. Okay, so what are the elements that we need in a good speech? Okay, so why aren't we doing those inside of debate, right? Okay, we have an intro and we have a hook. Where are the hooks, right? Well, not just the resolution. We need a concluding sentence. I know we don't just wait talking to the timer runs out. All these basic things that are truly, in most instances, very basic concepts from speech. I just was really insistent about, okay, yeah, we need a narrative. We need to make sure we summarize everything. And we need this to be narrative and story driven. I'm certainly not the only person to advocate for such. In my mind, why I was so successful is I was a pretty good marriage of the technical side and the narrative side. And putting those two things together, I think, is the reason why I was successful as I was.
What is your proudest accomplishment as a competitor and or coach in IPDA?
Probably my proudest accomplishment has to do not only with the accomplishment itself, which is, so my last year competing, I won both the season-long competitions in pro. I was first in speaking and first in season-longs, but also at the tournament, I was the runner-up by 1 point and 1 ballot. And that was a big achievement. Like, that's great. That achievement by itself is great for me. But the reason why it's my proudest one is because of what happened that year. That was my last year of grad school. I was in the midst of writing my thesis about debate. So I got to actually present at nationals, my thesis. I also had just had my son, Oliver, was born that same year. So in the midst of all that craziness of finishing a thesis and having Oliver and all the stress, so much stress of that year, to be able to come out of that year successful and doing all of this was a great feeling. It was a great feeling, not only because of the accomplishment, but also because I felt really supported. Everybody in the circuit was so helpful that year. And I just was definitely one of the years where I was like, yes, I'm so glad to be a part of this community. I'm so glad I managed to win this, but I'm so glad I was able to overcome such adversity to actually end up winning.
What about your proudest accomplishment that was earned outside of IPDA because of what you learned within IPDA?
I think my proudest accomplishment isn't even like an individual thing. It's the realization that I could be a teacher. I tell the story a lot in interviews when I'm talking about being a professor, and hopefully AJ has heard the story by now. Is when I started in college, I didn't think being a professor was a real job. Ironic, I know, right? I'm a professor now. But what I mean when I say that is I didn't think it was something that I could do realistically. I didn't think it was a real outcome, a realistic outcome. And over the years, people like Trey and AJ and Sheila all influenced me and pushed me towards this direction of, hey, you love this, you can do this, you can care for the students. So being able to transition from just doing it for, okay, this is going to be great for my career to I love this as an individual to, hey, this is something that I can do because I love. And I get to now teach every day and see students every day, whether they come to office hours or not. That's my proudest accomplishment is through the process of debating. I became and to do what I love the most, which is teaching. So that's what I'm most proud of.
Let's say I'm a mid-career professional. I'm considering Toastmasters because I hear it's going to improve my communication skills. I have no professional public speaking competitive experience, maybe barely anything in high school or college, but I have to give presentations every now and then. Why should I join the IPDA?
Well, reason number one is fun. We have a lot of fun, and you can talk about things that you know nothing about. That's great experience. As a professor or educator, talk about things that you know nothing about is a great way for self-evaluation, which is reason number two, which I'd probably say is you get a lot of feedback from a lot of people. And lay judges, hey, they may not always be quote unquote right, but they are always right in their own minds, which means great educational experience. You get that experience from a layperson. So it's fun. You get that layperson experience. But three, also, it's a legitimately great community. That can't be found everywhere. We are, and I say this overall, we are a very loving community for the vast majority of the time. We're going to accept you. Hopefully, we're going to try and promote that you're going to be doing it. And that's not something you find everywhere. It actually can be pretty hard to find at times. So it's one of our values, right? Inclusivity is one of those core values you even find in most of the IPDA literature. So because of that, I think all those reasons are great reasons why you could choose IPDA. You're going to have a lot more fun. You're going to get all the feedback you never wanted, even the feedback that makes you absolutely mad. But in getting some of that feedback, you're going to learn the lessons you might not have learned somewhere else. So that's the reason why I'd advocate for someone like that to join the IPDA.
Any questions for me?
I really don't have any questions. I really don't, unsurprisingly.
Closing comments, the floor is yours.
So I'm happy about this. I'm happy to have the discussion about pro. It's really fun to watch how the IPDA has changed over the years. I came in back in 2017, pre-COVID, and my research was all focused on what COVID did in terms of a community. And one of the things I'm so glad to have seen is during the COVID years, we struggled, right? Like anybody who struggles, right? To maintain that level of community and commitment and inclusiveness because we didn't see each other. And we could get it all into the details of CMC and all that kind of good jazz. But what I'm happy about is even after COVID, I think we've gone back to a place where we've been able to go and maintain that community. And that's really something that I'm proud of. And it's really something that, if you're a person listening to this and you may not have done IPDA, or if you're in the IPDA, or you're just wanting to get into it, hey, take heart. If we can survive the insanity of debating only about the pandemic for a year, which that was such a long year, so many vaccine topics. If we can survive all those craziness, hey, you can make it too. And you'll hopefully find a community that'll change your life like it's changed virtually every major individual in my life. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your time, Ethan.